You're listening to Boomers Today with your host, Frank Sampson.
Welcome, everybody, to Boomers Today. I'm Cynthia Perthuis, and I'm filling in today for Frank Sampson. And I am super honored to have Jackie Cara. And Jackie is the founder and owner of Cara Law in New York, and she provides clients with highly personalized estate planning and elder law services. With over 30 years of experience, Jackie believes that estate planning is lifetime planning. Now, most of the time, we think of estate planning as something for older, rich people. So, Jackie, I know you're going to tell us why life planning. I mean, just how early should someone plan their life?
So, hi, Cynthia. Thanks so much for asking me to be here with you today. I'm excited to talk to you about this. I think people should start doing some kind of planning probably in their 30s or 40s, definitely by the time they're 50. But what most people don't think about in their 30s when life gets really busy, I know this is the way it was for me. I'm watching my own kids. It's the way it is for them. You're buying your first house. You're trying to plan for college. Maybe you've had your first or second baby and you're figuring all of those things out. And when you're figuring all of those things out, you're not thinking about estate planning. You're not thinking about what's going to happen in the future. But what I encourage people to do is really look at estate planning, not as something that takes care of what happens when you die, but as something, like you said, lifetime planning that really takes care of you and protects you while you're alive. And what I mean by that is, in your 30s, having your first child, do you have a guardian in place? Have you and your spouse or your partner discussed who would be the guardian of your child or children? Have you made arrangements that their lives will be funded if you are not available to do that, if something tragic happens? People don't really think about that. They think, oh, well, my mother will take care of them or my father will take care of them. And, when something happens, your mother or father may not be able to do that. And it's really important that you and your partner have had a meeting of the minds and some discussion about who you want to be responsible for taking care of your children and what you want that to look like. That's part of estate planning. That's a part of estate planning most people don't think about when I talk about estate planning. So if we start in our 30s when we've bought the first house and we've had the first child, we're talking about providing for the kids and making sure they're protected and taken care of. Life moves on a little bit. You get into your 40s, maybe now you've put some money away to save for the kids' college and you're starting to think about retirement a little bit. But what becomes super important, as far as I'm concerned, is making sure the people that you would want to be making decisions for you are authorized to do that. So, in your late 30s, your 40s, you want to make sure you have a healthcare proxy that names a person you feel that you trust making your healthcare decisions. You want to make sure you have a power of attorney so that somebody can take care of your finances if you're not able to. So these are not things that necessarily happen when you die. These are things that would really help protect you and keep people in charge that you want to have in charge, people you trust, should something happen to you during your lifetime. So that's why I say it's lifetime planning. If we start at the beginning for this purpose, and as you move through the stages of your life, the purpose changes.
I have with my clients who all of us want to think that it's not when we die, it's if we die.
Yes.
Okay. Like maybe they think they're not going to die, but I'm going to tell them we all die.
Yes.
But we as a nation, I think as a people, sometimes have trouble with our own mortality. And I know just even I deal with elder clients who are closer to death than say a 20 or 30-year-old having children is. And they even have a difficult time with that. And so I like to use the term of if you get hit by a bus,
Yes.
No one expects to get hit by a bus. And so we need to make sure that, that these things are in order when or if you get hit by a bus, because we don't expect it. And people will say to me, oh, I don't have any cancer in my family. We live a long life. It doesn't matter. The bus doesn't care how long your life is or what your
Yes.
genetics.
Yeah, I've never heard of a bus accident where genetics were involved. And, things happen. And I meet a lot of people at that stage of their life who are thinking, well, what are the odds?
Mhm.
And you don't want to be the one that finds out and then has nothing in order to either take care of you if you're ill or incapacitated, or to take care of your affairs if some tragedy strikes and you die at a very young age. I read something funny today. I think people also ask me when they're younger, why do I need a power of attorney? My husband's right here, or my partner's right here, or our bank accounts are joint, or something like that. And I was reading an article about all those people that got stuck on the cruise ships. So you have all these couples stuck on cruise ships that have nowhere to dock and no way to get to the bank. And some of them were on the cruise ship for a very long time. So, that's a perfect example of people who needed to have a power of attorney at home so that somebody could go to the bank for them. I don't even want to talk about how you take care of your kids if you're stuck on the cruise ship.
Right. There's a reason you're on the cruise ship, but
Yes.
well, and that's an interesting topic, because I think that I also will hear people who are younger, and they'll say, well, if I'm dead, I'm dead. If I'm dead,
Yes.
I'm dead, somebody can take care of it. I think power of attorney and some of these estate planning things, as I see them, are not necessarily for if you're dead. It's
No.
maybe you're incapacitated in some way. And incapacitated in some way doesn't mean that you have a mental disorder, that you've developed dementia per se. It could just mean, again, back to the bus, you're in a coma for a little while.
Right.
And there's no one to pay your bills. Now, these documents can help that type of thing happen, right?
Right. And those are the things that you want to be protected for during your lifetime and earlier in your lifetime as you start to have responsibilities.
Mhm.
Because you may get hit by the bus and you may be absolutely fine at the end of the day, but in all likelihood, there's going to be a period of time where you're not going to be up to paying your bills, taking care of your responsibility, making sure the taxes are paid, maybe even making financial decisions with regard to your hospital care or your medical care, submitting claims and things like this. These are all things that a power of attorney is legally permitted to do when something unexpected happens and you're sort of out of the game for a couple of months or whatever the case may be. I had back surgery. It's years ago now, but I couldn't go anywhere for a while. You don't realize when you're recovering from a serious operation or an accident or something like that, how difficult day-to-day life really becomes for just a period of time while you're getting better. And I had a power of attorney who could take care of things for me. But if you don't have that, you may not be able to have everything taken care of that you need taken care of. And I just want to say a couple of words about a healthcare proxy, because this is super important, especially with so many people today not getting married. Your healthcare proxy is the person authorized to make medical decisions for you in the event that you can't. So if you're hit by that bus and you're unconscious and somebody's looking for the person who you've authorized to make medical decisions, you really want it to be the person you trust the most. You may not want it to be your sister in Nebraska or your mother, wherever your mom is. You may want it to be a partner or a very close friend. And if you haven't put those documents in place, that's not who the hospital is going to turn to make those decisions for you. So this is why I call it lifetime planning. This is why I say estate planning is a process through different stages of your life, and it's for different reasons. When you plan when you're young, it's planning for an emergency. You
Right.
plan when you're older, you're planning for nursing home care or Medicaid coverage or dying. What happens to your assets when you die? But when you're younger, you're planning for different things.
Mhm. I know that kind of the family lore that we have in our family is that my parents brought us what we called the big brown notebook, and they brought it
Yes.
to us, when they were in their 50s, early 50s. And my sister and I said, oh, what is this for? We can't believe you have all of this. we were able to use that, even though it really didn't have, it had directions for us, but those directions weren't our parents saying, please do this for me, Cynthia. It was more the will and the healthcare proxy and the power of attorney. They were all spelled out. And so when that time came where they had declined and we had been living our lives, skipping around without thinking about that, and they began to decline, we were able to take that notebook and use it as a guidebook of, okay, this says in case of this, do that. And it told us what we needed to do, not only what they wanted us to do, but what we were supposed to do.
Right.
Because we really had no idea what they wanted us to do.
So my parents have a green tin box. I don't think it has a key anymore. It's very rusty, but this green box has, moved from house to house with us. Occasionally when my mother would go on a trip, she'd take the green box out and hand it to me, and everything is in there. And they've been doing some kind of estate planning probably since their 40s. I have 2 siblings and my parents did appoint a guardian, and they did those things, not because I told them to, because I wasn't a lawyer yet. But they have the green box, and having that green box, if you're a client of mine, you get a binder that has instructions for your family, all the documents in order and in place, telling people exactly what to do and who to call. But some centralized place where your family can get their hands on these written documents and what it is that you want to have happen when you're sick, when you're in a hospital, when you need to go to a nursing home, and then when you pass away. With estate planning, it's sort of not the goal to talk about when you pass away. The goal is to talk about all these things we want to do for you while you're living.
Correct.
And how to make an estate plan that grows with you over the course of your life.
So we're going to take a quick commercial break, and then I want to come back. When we come back, I want to talk about this plan and how it ages, and if it ages, and if there are times when it's gotten too old and it needs to be reborn. So just think about that. So we're going to go to the commercial break.
Great topic.
So today's sponsor is Senior Care Authority, a national elder care consulting company specializing in senior living. With over 60 locations around the country, Senior Care Authority's team of certified senior advisors work in person with older adults and their families to find the best care and living options. If you have questions or need help navigating the maze of senior care and living options, reach out to Senior Care Authority for a free consultation. And you can go to www.seniorcareauthority.com to find a local representative and get the help you need. So welcome back. And now I'd love to have that discussion. And let me tell you, it's a personal discussion because I did my estate planning in my brown book, my green tin box. I did that about 10 years ago. And since that time, I've had grandchildren or a grandchild. I live in a different state. Is it time? Is my estate plan and all my work, is it kind of too old? Do I need to get it all back up to speed?
So that's a great question, Cynthia. There's a couple of moving parts to that. So a good estate planning attorney drafts your documents, keeping in mind that you might never come back and address these things again. A lot of clients like that they've created the brown notebook, they've created the tin box, and they never want to talk about it again. So a good estate planning attorney is going to draft the documents that are going to survive if you don't come back, and at least provide the basics for you. But an estate plan should really be something that grows with you through different transitions in your life. So you mentioned having grandchildren. I would bet money that your estate plan already takes care of that.
Oh, I can pull that out and look at that. Okay.
Yeah. So I would bet money that your estate plan was written to include your grandchildren, right? And you can take a look at it and talk to somebody about it, because it may not take care of your grandchildren the way you want to now that you actually know them. Now that you've seen them and touched them and loved them, you may want something different for them. But I can almost guarantee that your estate plan contemplated when you have grandchildren in the way that your estate is distributed. But now you mentioned moving out of state. Now, moving out of state is a little bit different and not so much because of the big meat of your estate plan. If you have a trust, that's probably still fine. If you have a will, there's certain things that will have to be done with it, but that would also still serve your needs. But when you move out of state, back to our conversation earlier about the importance of taking care of us when we're alive, different states have very different rules for healthcare proxies, power of attorneys. Some states allow living wills, some don't. So those provisions are very different. And I would always advise clients who move out of state or who snowbird, for example, or who go back and forth, and that they have a power of attorney, healthcare proxy, and living will in both places.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, so that's a document you want to examine if you move out of state, because that will change.
Okay.
The other question you brought up is it too old? So I would say when you're young, 30s or 40s, we're talking about people who kind of starting out in life.
Or 50s or 60s, right? Young.
I'll talk about 50s or 60s because that's where I live. So, but when we're talking about, maybe our kids and starting out, their estate plan was probably drafted. It's probably fairly simple. It's probably drafted to contemplate that they may have children and, that they have a partner and what they want to see happen. And that can last for a while, having people always ask me, I've had another child, do I have to update my estate plan? You shouldn't have to. A competent estate planning attorney is providing for the possibility that you'll have more children or adopt a child or something like that. But as we get older, what I really impress upon my clients is that if someone ever starts to claim that you're incapacitated and that you made decisions that were different from your prior decisions, or somebody was unduly influencing you, the best evidence that that is not the case is 20 years of documents that say exactly the same thing. So as my clients age, and I'll include myself in the aging, so we can include the 50s and 60s in this, I encourage them to review the estate plan every 5 years or so and maybe re-execute those powers of attorney and healthcare proxies. They can say exactly the same thing. But so if somebody ever questions, that's not what mom wanted, or she was, my sister unduly influenced her at the end of her life, you can pull out 5 or 6 old healthcare proxies or powers of attorney that all say the same thing.
It shows some continuity.
It shows continuity, and it shows what your intentions were long-term.
Okay.
So is it too old? Powers of attorney and healthcare proxies, they shouldn't become stale. Unfortunately, when we use them, we're dealing with institutions. So if you go to a bank with a 20-year-old's power of attorney, it's perfectly valid as a document, but the bank may really resist accepting it, which is another good reason why I encourage clients, especially as they get older, to re-execute documents on a regular basis. And they can all say the same thing, just for exactly that reason. So you always have a fresh one.
Okay. So let me quickly ask you, there's a lot of people who are elder law attorneys, estate planners, a lot of them. What makes you different? How did you get into this business? I'm going to feed you the line. Is that what made you different? Your pathway to this business?
So when I graduated from law school, I became a trial attorney. I was a litigator, and I liked being a litigator, and I use my litigation skills in my estate planning work now, because I look at everything as what's the possible lawsuit here, so I sort of like to draft everything as if somebody's going to sue and there's going to be a problem. But I had twins, and everybody plans their life. I'm going to have one baby, and I'm going to go back to work, and that baby's going to be perfectly healthy, and I have a plan in place. Well, I had twins, and there goes the plan. And my twins were born with special needs, and my pregnancy was difficult, so I was not well after they were born. And it brought me into, gave me a whole new perspective on things that can happen and why planning is important. It also sort of threw a monkey wrench in my litigation career, because I've not met a judge who's okay with you coming back every other day and, you know, taking a break to feed the baby. So I had to transition to something else. So as my kids got a little bit older and I had a little bit of time, a very little bit of time, I wanted to help women and children. I wanted to use my degree. I had time to volunteer, and I started working with a population of primarily women and children who were dealing with issues that were putting them at risk for homelessness. I had no idea this had anything to do with estate planning. So the very long story short is that as I got more familiar with that work and working with this population, judges started to get to know me, and they started assigning me guardianship work. And what I found in guardianship work is you're dealing with an incapacitated person. And chances are, if they need a guardian appointed, they haven't done any planning, because there's nobody there to take care of them, or nobody knows who's supposed to be taking care of them or helping them. And now they're incapacitated. They're either physically unwell or mentally unwell or suffering from dementia. And every one of those people I came across, I've handled hundreds of guardianships. Every one of them needed some kind of planning, whether it was planning to get them on Medicaid so they could get the medical coverage they needed, or whether it was, you know, securing their housing and getting them an apartment and aids in place. All of those people needed planning. So I started to learn about estate planning through this back door of guardianships. And eventually I decided to make estate planning my career. And I think it made sense for me because, as I said, my twins had special needs, one of my daughters specifically. So I learned an awful lot about the type of planning that it takes to prepare for and provide for a child who's unexpectedly not neurotypical or struggling with some sort of a learning or physical disability or neurological disabilities, which is what happened in my case. And, you know, I got to know a lot of parents who had special needs children, and I did a lot of research, and I started helping parents plan for their special needs children. And that's my very long story of how I ended up doing estate planning. What I love about estate planning is it's a puzzle. Everybody who walks in the door, everybody who picks up the phone has a different concern. Yeah. They're worried about something different. They feel they need to plan for something that's very special and close to them, whether it's planning for a special needs child or choosing their healthcare proxy or talking about what they can do to help their parents. These are very personal issues and very, very real concerns for the people that call me for help. And, you know, I have this life experience that I sort of bring to the table in that I've lived with having a special needs child. Last 2 years, both of my parents have been very ill and been through surgeries and hospitalizations and rehabilitation. And I bring all of that empathy and understanding and experience to the table. And I think that's what makes me a little bit different. I sort of hold the hands of my clients as we walk through the process.
Well, and you know, I think a lot of people who get into these types of businesses come to try or should, the ones that I'm going to say the ones who do a really great job, because I think my company does a really great job, and most of us come to this with that background as well. And I know that with my company, that's Senior Care Authority in New York and Florida, we support about 1,500 families a year, and that's 1,500 different families. They're all different. So it's the same thing, I think, with what you're saying, is that each person comes with some little nuance that makes theirs different. Part of it is because we're all human beings. And so it takes someone who's walked that path and has the empathy to help really get into not cookie cuttering your business.
Yeah, and I think it's important because there certainly are estate planning firms or companies out there that do cookie cutter business. And, not to disparage anybody, but they sort of invite you for a steak dinner and then give you this plan, in this book that you fill out, and there's your estate plan. And, I think it needs to be done very differently. Like I said, I love to have families where I represent the parents and I'm representing the children, and everybody comes in together and I can explain everything to everybody and, really give the family peace of mind. I really love when I have that connection with everybody that's either taking care of somebody or planning for somebody or worried about somebody, that I can really make a difference in somebody's life.
Well, and that's why I like to have people like you on the podcast. I like to talk to empathetic people who really, this is their heart's work. Yes, we all want to make a living, but it's our heart's work. So if someone wants to contact you to further understand what you do, who you are, how would they get in touch with you?
Well, they can go to my website, which is www.jackie, JACKIE, Cara, CARA, law, LAW.com. They can email me at Jackie Cara Law. Or they could give me a call, and my phone number is on the website. Let's see, I think it's actually right here also. Hold on, 516-217-9200. The dangers of cell phones and having every number programmed in is, I don't remember any of my phone numbers.
The line that I always use is that Einstein said he didn't know his own phone number because he could look it up someplace. And
exactly.
So that's how I like to look at it, is that it's, I'm just Einstein.
Yes. Oh, you can equate me with Einstein. That's fine.
Yeah, see, there you go. So thank you so much for joining us. And I want to thank the audience for joining us as well. And this is, again, I'm Cynthia Perthuis with Boomers Today. And just join us next time as we navigate issues that affect the Boomer generation. Thank you so much, Jackie, for being here.
Thanks for having me.
You've been listening to Boomers Today with Frank Sampson. To learn more about today's show, visit boomerstodayradio.com and join us next time for another edition of Boomers Today.